Back for the fifth lecture on the respiratory system. Today we're going to talk about pressures. There are three major pressures we got to know. Number one, atmospheric pressure. This is the pressure of all the air around you. Okay, this is the pressure that has to be overcome in order to breathe out. This is the pressure that has to be, that you've got to get your lung pressure below in order to breathe in. All right? So atmospheric pressure, very important pressure. And it's the one that's not really going to change very much. Now, other two pressures, also important. Number two, intrapulmonary pressure. That is the pressure inside your lungs. Sometimes it'll be called lung pressure or alveolar pressure. It is the pressure that's going to change with each breath. All right? You're going to have to make it low in order for you to breathe in and make it high for you to breathe out. Last but not least is the pressure inside the pleural cavity. That is the intrapleural pressure. We'll deal with that in a moment or two. Okay, so obviously in order for air to move, there has to be a pressure gradient. So during inspiration, atmospheric pressure has got to be greater than intrapulmonary pressure. So in order to inspire, we make our lung pressure drop below atmospheric. We create a gradient, air flows in until that gradient is abolished. When we breathe out, atmospheric pressure has got to be lower than intrapulmonary pressure. So we raise our lung pressure until it exceeds atmospheric, and then air is going to move out. Okay, now how do we achieve those pressure changes? Hold your horses. We'll get to that soon enough. Now there is something else called the transpulmonary pressure. That is the difference between the pressure in the lungs, intrapulmonary, and the pressure in the pleural cavity, intrapleural. Normally, the transpulmonary pressure is about 4 millimeters of mercury. What this means is that the pressure inside the lungs is 4 millimeters of mercury greater than the pressure in the pleural cavity. Now, why does this have to be so? Well, let's think about it. What's in your lungs right now? Air. There's always air in your lungs. You're never going to be able to expel all the air in your lungs. There's always going to be a residual volume in there. So your lungs, because they always have air, are always being stretched. Now remember this, you know the lungs have a lot of elastic tissue. So if they're always being stretched, they are always desiring to recoil, to snap back, to unstretch themselves. Obviously, you don't want your lungs to collapse because of their natural desire to recoil. So what has to happen is that the molecules of air in the lungs, where my mouse is dancing right here, have to constantly push on the wall of the lung to prevent it from collapsing. And the reason the molecules of air are going to push on the wall of the lung is because the pressure in the pleural cavity is lower than the pressure in the lungs. So air is always trying to go from inside the lungs to inside the pleural cavity. Air can't do that, of course, because there's no hole between these two. But by trying to go there, the air molecules in your lungs push against the wall of the lungs, preventing their collapse. Okay, let's say you had a little accident while you were chopping some vegetables and you accidentally stabbed yourself a tiny bit in between the fourth and the fifth rib. Oh wow, that's not good, is it? Now your knife never touched your lung, but look what happened to the lung. It collapsed. It collapsed because of all of a sudden the pressure in the pleural cavity was no longer low. It was the same as atmospheric. So there was no longer any transpulmonary pressure. No reason for air molecules to push against the wall of the lung, and the lung collapsed to its unstretched size, which is about the size of your fist. Make a fist, look at your fist. That's how tiny your lung can get. Put your fist up against your chest, and it's such a difference right there. So we don't want this to occur. And so this relationship between intrapulmonary and intrapleural pressure, this transpulmonary pressure, must always exist. All right, wonderful. Let's keep going. Let's talk about the relationship between pressure and volume. Okay, so here I got a container. I got 5 gas molecules. The gas molecules are constantly bashing against the walls of the container. They're exerting pressure on the walls. Remember, pressure is force divided by area. Okay? So if we make the area smaller, if we push down our plunger here, we make the area smaller, well, these gas molecules will crash into the walls more often because it's a smaller area. They're going to crash into the walls more often. They're going to exert a greater pressure. So as volume goes one way, pressure goes to the other. And the dead guy who figured all this out was Mr. Boyle. Okay, now let's walk through the normal quiet sequence of events for normal quiet breathing. Okay, air is going to move into your lungs when intrapulmonary pressure is less than atmospheric. So make a less than sign right there. Atmospheric is the greater of the two. Now, we're going to decrease intrapulmonary pressure by increasing lung volume. I'm giving you this little break there so you can say it before I do, okay? We increase lung volume by increasing thoracic volume. Remember, the pleural fluid causes the adherence of the visceral pleura to the parietal pleura, so whatever the thorax does, the lungs do. Now we're going to increase the volume of the lungs by contracting skeletal muscles. Major skeletal muscle of quiet inspiration is the diaphragm. Look at that beautiful dome-shaped diaphragm right there. There it is, separating your thoracic and abdominal cavity, forming the roof of your abdomen, the floor of your thorax. There is our relaxed diaphragm right there, dome-shaped when it's relaxed, flattens out when it contracts. As it flattens out, it drags the lung with it. Notice the lungs here versus down here. The post-contraction lungs are taller than the pre-contraction lungs. So, when a diaphragm contracts, the lungs get taller, their vertical dimension increases, so lung volume has gone up, which means lung pressure will go down. Take a deep breath, or a medium breath. You should feel your abdominal wall going out when you breathe in if you're using your diaphragm. If you're not using your diaphragm, then that means you're relying too much on your external intercostal muscles, which pull the ribs out, as the external in their name suggests, kind of a bucket handle motion. And as the ribs go out, the lateral dimension of the thorax increases. The rib cage gets wider, which means the lungs get wider, which means their volume has gone up, and thus their pressure has gone down. Okay, the nerves to the external intercostal muscles, of course, are the intercostal nerves. The nerve to the diaphragm, of course, is the phrenic nerve. Notice how high up the phrenic nerve comes out of the cervical spinal cord. Here's the good thing to remember. If you're going to break your neck below C5. Okay? Below C5. That way you'll still be able to breathe on your own. Okay, what if we were trying to do forced inspiration? If we were trying to take in a huge deep breath. Well, to take in a big breath, the pressure gradient needs to be even bigger. So lung pressure needs to be even lower. So lung volume needs to be even bigger. Thoracic volume needs to be even bigger. Well, how do we do this? Well, there's a couple ways. Number one, we could contract the diaphragm more, get more motor units going in the diaphragm. We could contract the external intercostals more, get more motor units going in them. Also, we could call upon other muscles. The pectoralis minor pulls the ribs up. The sternocleidomastoid pulls the upper ribs, sternum, up. The erector spinae, sit up really straight in your chair. You'll notice your chest gets bigger. All of these are accessory muscles that help you do forced inspiration. All right, we'll stop there. Pick up more next time. See you later.